Hello, and welcome to Beyond the Barcode, an innovation-forward podcast brought to you by Tompkins Solutions. On this podcast, we'll be diving into the intersection of advanced robotics, warehouse automation, and supply chain transformation. My name is Tony Del Cid, and I'm a director with Tompkins Solutions, and I have the distinct honor of being your host on this podcast.
The machine uses only two sounds produced electrically.
For our first episode, I had the pleasure of catching up with Pete Allen, head of strategic partnerships at Agility Robotics. Some of the topics I covered with Pete were humanoid safety, some of the tasks within a facility that the humanoid could perform, and some of the upcoming features and releases that were coming for Agility and their Digit robot. Now let's listen in and see what Pete has to say. Well, Pete, welcome to the podcast, and thanks for being our first guest.
Hey, Tony, it is great to be here. I'm thrilled to be your initial guest here for the Tompkins Solutions podcast and excited to have this conversation today.
Awesome. Well, why don't you introduce yourself for our listeners? Maybe tell us a little bit about how you ended up in the field of supply chain and give us a little background on Agility for those who may not be familiar with you guys.
Yeah, happy to. So I have been in the world of robotic automation now for going on upwards of 6 years. I started in it at Berkshire Grey, which many of the folks know is, very heavy into things like robotic pick arms, put walls, robotic product sortation. And I had the opportunity just over a year ago to get into this wonderful, exciting new world of humanoid robots. And it's really fascinating what's going on. So my role here at Agility is head of our partnership ecosystem. So I, from a strategic point of view, figure out who are the right partners for us to work with. We look at systems integrators like Tompkins Solutions. We look at complementary technologies, things like AMRs, put walls, ASRSs, where Digit can be a great complementary solution, as I said earlier. And then we also work with supply chain consultants. So I'm very well versed in the whole world of supply chain with a strength in robotic automation and how to help companies figure out, where it could be a great fit in their operations.
Awesome. So you've seen some things, as the kids say.
We've seen some things, man. We have seen some things. And most importantly, what's great in our industry is there's a lot of opportunity, whether it's a brownfield operation or a greenfield operation. We have the constant pains that our customers are feeling, which is, labor constraints. They need to increase their throughput in the operations. And automation is a great way to do that, as long as the automation can be deployed correctly and orchestrated properly within the building to maximize that throughput the customers are looking for, which is what systems integrator is great at doing.
Exactly. Good segue. So, around here, we've really been excited by the last 5 years. I think you've seen a huge proliferation of automation solutions out there, providers in regards to all kinds of automation, robotics included. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that may think, humanoids sound a little too futuristic. This is something kind of out of Terminator or the Jetsons, right? and they may be having difficulty trying to visualize like where a Digit may fit in their operations. Why don't you go through and explain to us how Digit really is a today's solution, and maybe educate us on some of the workflows or tasks in a warehouse operation where Digit may excel?
Yeah, it's a great question, because I think, if you're out there and you're looking up humanoids on the internet, you're going to see tons of them, right? There's probably, there's what I would call 5 companies that are like, hey, we think they're pretty real. And there's probably another 10, 15 that's like, I'm not sure what's going on there, but they got cool videos, right? But I tell everybody who asks about humanoid robotics, I'd say, hey, look, the industry and these robots are infants. Like literally, we are teaching them some basic skills to do different tasks. And not every humanoid company is necessarily focused on the same thing. If I watch videos from Tesla, they're showing videos of being in your home. And I say, great. Like there's a safety aspect, which we should talk about, but not quite yet.
Right.
But then,
Exactly.
if I look back at Agility, we are very focused on the world of warehousing and manufacturing. And we are being very practical about teaching Digit skills that we're going to evolve over time so that Digit can become a multi-purpose robot that could be used across a warehouse or manufacturing. So bring it back to today. Most humanoids are not doing anything in production. Agility is leading in that effort in that we are already in production. We are, for example, at a facility with GXO, which is public. It's Spanx. We operate 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, all the time. And we have other customers that, some are public and some are not, but we are being very intentional about use cases. And when I think about our roadmap, we have been clear to the industry, like, we're going to focus on bulk manipulation and teach Digit to do different manipulation skill sets around bulk. Now, what does that mean? If I think of a warehouse, I think there's kind of 3 different types of things that are manipulated, meaning they're picked and packed or moved in some way, right? So what falls under bulk? Right off the bat, totes. Totes are bulk. Next is boxes, right? That represents somewhere between 70 to 80% of the type of work that goes on in these facilities. Now, the third is each picking, right? Or picking of single SKUs. When I say agility is focused on bulk, for the foreseeable future, that's what we're training Digit to do. So we're not doing each picking right now. So I think that gives people a sense of kind of the high level task. But now let's break it down to specific use cases, right? Digit is looking for areas where there's like islands of automation where they need to be connected, where there's a human today. And if we just take totes as the example, today an AMR could pull up to an outbound conveyor. And today a person is taking order totes off of that conveyor and putting them on, the AMR and putting them onto the conveyor, right?
Right.
And
Right.
that's an example of it. So Digit today is capable of inducting totes into an AMR, deducting totes from an AMR. Very similarly, it could do it from a put wall. I could take totes and put it into an OPEX sure sort, or I could take it to a T-sort, or a Tompkins T-sort robotics, right? I could take totes, induct them into that. I could take full totes, deduct them out. And when I say I mean Digit, not me, because typically what we're finding is people don't want these jobs. They're very repetitive. They're heavy totes in cases that they're upwards of like 30 pounds, right? And that's all they do all day. And nobody wants to do that. Turnover's high. So Digit can do that type of work. For those who might go to ProMat and might be coming along with you guys to see new technology, whatnot, you'll see Digit doing other tasks. We're starting now to do stacking of totes. For a good example might be you have a conveyor that gets backlogged for some reason. So you've got to stack order totes next to that to wait for that conveyor to free up. We're doing destacking, which starts to lead to depalletizing, right? So those are all examples of different manipulation skill sets that require a robot to perceive the tote, perceive its environment, figure out how to grasp it, figure out how to lift it, stabilize it, and then walk to wherever it has to go to put that tote down. So hopefully that gives you a sense of kind of the broad spectrum of training Digit to be multi-purpose, to be moved around a warehouse over time. But then today, kind of very focused on totes right now, where they teach Digit these skill sets to move into boxes a little bit down the road.
Yep. But again, highly repetitive tasks.
Highly repetitive tasks, lifting heavy things, high turnover rates. People don't want these jobs.
Exactly.
So Digit's not coming to take your job. No, that's not the case in most instances.
Yeah. The jobs no one wants in the warehouse.
That's right. That's right.
Now, you've mentioned a couple times in your response teaching and training. So I know sometimes those of us on the mechanical side tend to oversimplify automation and really focus on tasks and jobs that automation is performing. So why don't you walk us through what actually goes into training or teaching Digit to learn a new manipulation, a skill, or a task to complete a job in the warehouse? And then do you feel that this process further allows you, or allows Digit, I should say, to kind of become a general purpose robot within the warehouse?
Yeah. So there's a lot of nuance to that answer, but let me start with the simple version, which is by training Digit to do multiple different manipulation skills, there's no doubt it becomes a multi-purpose robot, because you can imagine at the beginning of the day, starting receiving, a pallet comes in, somebody's got to depalletize that, right? If you don't have a machine to do it, a Digit could do that. And then next shift or 4 hours later, it could walk over to a put wall and start inducting totes and deducting totes. And maybe there's an AMR there. So you start to see this multi-purpose. It can walk around, do different things. But again, at some point we should talk about safety, because there's a factor there that's about the infancy stage going on. But I think about training, to your question, right? This is the nuance thing. There are humanoid robotics companies that are praising AI as it's going to teach the robot how to do these things just by itself.
Right.
Wrong, not exactly right. AI is like the biggest hype thing. It certainly has a lot of promise. But if you think about AI and like ChatGPT today, ChatGPT, you ask it to go do something, it goes and searches the whole internet, and it spits you back this answer. And sometimes that answer is really good. Sometimes there's some nuance where it's not so good, right?
Right.
There's no
Right.
internet for robot training. There's no database for that. It doesn't exist. So when I think of AI and I think of training and how do we train a robot, like Agility takes an approach of kind of three different things. There's like teleop training, which is I've got an operator who's training Digit to understand what it's doing, because Digit has a AI physical presence, right? It's got capability all built into it for AI. So there's the ability to like autonomously see where it's walking and figure that out. And it does that. It's autonomously figuring out how to grab a tote, but we've got to teach it that. So we can teach it with kind of three different things. It's one, teleop training, it's simulation, and then there's AI that can factor in as well. But AI requires us to capture a lot of data from the robot and what real robot manipulation data looks like, to then have a data lake that I can then train these simulation models on, that once I've learned it or Digit has learned it, it can pass on to other Digits. So there's kind of like three things that go into the training, but it's a little nuanced, but it's not all AI. And anybody who's telling you that, I would argue, yeah, probably not.
It's a lot of trust.
There's a lot of PhDs that are way smarter than me. One of them happens to be one of our founders, Jonathan Hurst, who has done multiple presentations at places like the Humanoids Summit, Robotics Summit on this topic. And I'm sure there's some YouTube videos. I would encourage people to go find them. He does a great job explaining this. I did a very rudimentary, high-level version of it. He can dive a lot deeper, and I think people will get a much better understanding by hearing Jonathan speak on that topic.
Cool. Well, and a couple of things I want to pick up on your response. And the first thing, and I observed this when we went through your facility out there, you build that data lake, like you said, and through AI naturally built into Digit, you guys are able to kind of take something and learn, right, based on what they observe or what they do. And we did observe that. You'd mentioned that in one of your demonstrations that you had in your facility where Digit was placing onto the conveyor line as a takeaway, right? Kind of that AMR scenario you brought up earlier. And it learned that I don't need to turn my body the whole way facing the conveyor system, right? If I keep it at a 45-degree angle, I actually get the tote on faster and I get away faster. So I thought that was pretty interesting, real life practical learnings that we saw out there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that there's a combination that goes into something like that. It's what Digit perceives and how it figures out to move to a place and pick up from a place. It's also some of that teleoperation can come into place where an operator could see, hey, if we taught Digit to do it slightly differently, it could evolve that skill, right? And then some of that can also be figured out in simulation. Like, hey, if we ever tried walking up sideways, let's put that into sim. Oh, hey, that looks good. Let's now pass it to Digit. So that all three of those things can have input into what I would say increase a workflow. So if Digit starts out, as an example, doing 100 totes an hour at whatever that workflow is, over time and through small incremental changes, perceptions by Digit, things we do in sim, we might improve that by 10, 15, 20% in a short window to maximize or increase that capacity.
Exactly. And again, you mentioned, Digit moving to other work jobs as well. So just because you define it to work in a specific role, the first hour of the day. Again, much like a human workforce, if the work balance moves to another function in the facility, you've got those other tasks that you've trained it on that you can move and reallocate those resources.
Yeah, that's right. And I think, we should hit on safety a little bit here to kind of like paint the picture of what's today look like
Hmm.
versus the window of the picture you just painted, which is, hey, I want to see Digit cooperatively working with humans and move around a building, right? So let's talk about that today. Right now in the industry, I think there's now a second company of humanoids starting to talk about safety, but Agility has talked about it from day one. And the reality is there are no safety requirements for bipedal robots today. So bodies like ANSI and OSHA and others who create standards for things like AMRs and other robotic automation so that they're safe to work around people, for bipedal robots or humanoid robots doesn't exist. Um, we are starting to help write those. So if we go back to the AMR world, right? 8 years ago, they didn't exist either. But Melanie Wise, who was the founder of Fetch, started to help these bodies and agencies write the standards for them. And today, we see AMRs taking off and their safety standards and they're cooperative and collaborative, etc. Because that doesn't exist for bipedals, and because these robots are dynamically powered, if they lose power, they can fall over. And they're 150 pounds-ish, right? And if they fall
Yeah.
over and land on somebody, you could hurt somebody. So out of
Right.
abundance of caution, we will put safety barriers around a workflow to take people out of the places where Digit is currently working. Now, Digit can perceive objects and people. So if it were to see somebody and safe, it'll stop. But the bigger worry is like, we don't want anybody getting hurt, right? So for the foreseeable future, think of humanoid robots are going to have to be in cages. So again, working in your house, good luck. Good luck.
Yeah.
But in 2 years' time, and I think Melanie, who's our chief product officer, did a keynote speech at the A3 Humanoid Summit sometime last summer. And she mentioned that we are working on a next generation robot that within 2 years' time will be out there, will be a cooperative robot, will have met the standards that we're helping to write today. And that's when we'll see these humanoids start to move around a building because they're no longer constrained by cages.
Gotcha, gotcha. And I assume the same applies towards coming close to lift truck traffic and other machinery as well that may be protected.
Yeah, absolutely. The robot has to perceive its world. And again, what's nice about humanoid as a form factor is it's designed to work in the same places that humans work today. So you won't have to think about, as an integrator, oh my God, I've got to do a whole bunch of infrastructure changes to a building in order for this to work.
Right. So I guess given everything we've talked about so far and kind of the pending safety collaboration or improvements, let's say with collaboration with humans, and the recent trend, and you kind of touched on it earlier with the declining numbers of available resources or people that even want to do that work, let alone if there's resources available there. It's got to be a catalyst for the adoption of this type of technology. Now, as we mentioned in the first question, there's just a huge amount of new players, right, in this type of world or this segment. What would you say sets both Digit and Agility apart from maybe some of the other options out there?
Yeah, I think first and foremost is we have a head start. We're out there in production. Others are starting to get a little bit of traction, I believe, but I think there are things that are going to uh, be challenges to scaling these robots, right? I think if you look at industry analysts, they're projecting, billions of dollars of growth over time from the humanoid robotic space. But today, there's probably less than 25 deployments, 25 robots that are actually in the world deployed anywhere, right? Small. And, Agility's taken this approach of like, hey, let's work with strategic Fortune 100 customers who want to be early adopters, see the vision of what this type of robot can do, want to train their people, teach their people to what it's like, because it's not scary. It's actually pretty fun. It's good. Um, And also we want to work with folks like Tompkins Solutions as integrators to help bring this to market, right? And so we're trying to find customers that want to do early trials, right? We want to keep the cost low so that people who are interested can jump in, right? I think most people look at this and go, it's going to be really, really expensive. Oh my God, there's no way we could try it. Well, we'll take that barrier away. But we want to get them in the field because we want to create that data, like I talked about earlier.
Right. Right.
The more work Digit does, the better it gets. And the idea is that most of our customers who have done this and put them into a POC, they've signed up to a RAS agreement and are willing to jump in and say, look, I see where these advancements are coming. They're coming rapidly. I'm seeing things that are getting better and better. Because to get to scale, we've got to improve the workflow rate, right? These robots have to get up to close to human parity in terms of units per hour. Today, they're somewhere between 60 and 70+%, right? Not
Okay.
bad, pretty
No.
close. We've got to get out of the cages, right? We got to get that safety standard created. We've got to have a cooperative robot. I think the third thing that's constantly evolving is battery life. Our expectation with some work we're doing exclusively with the battery company is we see in 2 years' time getting to a 10-to-1 work ratio to charge ratio, which at that point, that's a shift.
Yep.
Right, for a person. So I think those are the obstacles that are standing in the way of scale, but we're not that far off from it. And again, early adopters are getting the advantage of starting now and seeing those incremental improvements over time.
Well, and I would imagine much like anything, right? Once you get it in there, then you start thinking of other areas, or you notice, right, things that maybe it's hard to describe when you're pitching this to someone. So once you get it in the four walls, it's pretty easy to see other tasks that it could take on top of what you originally thought.
Yeah, and you know this from your role as a solutions person within the integrator. You see plenty of these islands of automation that need connections, right? It could be all kinds of different things in a warehouse. And what's nice is with our ARC software, we can easily integrate our robot into a WMS, a WCS. We can integrate directly to other technologies. And, we become very easy to deploy. We're not like a 6 to 9 month ASRS deployment, where it's an infrastructure change, just build out this monolithic thing. It's, hey, we could be up and running in a couple of days from deployment to, commissioning go live. It doesn't take a lot to get these up.
Well, and you kind of went to where I was going to go during this conversation. Obviously, this is pretty cutting edge technology, and even folks that are pretty familiar with automation may not have a really good grasp of kind of timelines. So, could you maybe elaborate a little bit more on what the typical steps are along the way to plan and prepare for the implementation of a digit, and then also maybe some of the timings of those steps?
Yeah, let's do that from the lens of working with Tompkins Solutions, right? So let's
Perfect.
say one of your customers, you've talked to them, they've shown an interest, or one of your customers has knocked on your door, or prospect knocks on your door and said, hey, I heard you guys are working with humanoids and I'd love to learn more. The typical process is, hey, let's identify, do they have a tote manipulation or a bulk manipulation workflow that we think makes sense, right? And let's see, how interested they are. And if they say, hey, yeah, we're super interested in this, then we would collect some data, some videos, some pictures, some dimensions about that. And we would do a very quick assessment. So if you guys collected and sent it to us, we'd tell you within like a couple of days, hey, that's feasible. We think we can do that. Or, yeah, that's not going to fly. So we don't want to waste people's time starting
Perfect.
off.
Yep.
But we say it's feasible. We would then, with you guys, we'd go on site to that customer. We would take physical measurements. We talk to the customer to understand the workflow, the rates, the exceptions, because there's always exceptions, right? This as you build out different technologies, what's going to be acceptable, not acceptable. And we say, okay, look, this is doable. We've got everything we need. We're going to come back with an SOW. And that might take another week or so. So we write an SOW that the customer and us and you guys iterate on. We agree to it, sign off on it. From the time they sign off to deployment can be as quick as 4 weeks or as long as probably 8 weeks. And it depends. And I say it depends on really one area. If Digit has the skill to do the work that they are looking to do already,
Mhm.
it's that 4-week window from contract to
Gotcha.
on-site to deployed. And once it's on site, it's like a day or two to be running and functional. Um, if it's not a skill we do, but it's on our roadmap and we want to do it, we might have a few milestones ahead of being on site where we say to the customer, hey, I'm going to stand up milestone 1, which is I'm going to show you that we can do this work in our lab. We create a mock environment and we'll show you that. And then maybe there's a second milestone that because it's a harder job or whatever. And then we'll deploy in that 8-week time frame because it's like step 1, step 2, make sure this is going to work, and then put
Mhm.
it in there because it's a new skill set. So a couple of different
Gotcha.
timelines, but not super long. Again, not super expensive, but a way to customers to get started and to see, hey, is this something that, okay, now that I have it in my environment, do I view that this can scale within my organization?
Gotcha. Yep. And obviously the opening of the new facility, right, really gives you that horsepower to be able to produce the digit.
Oh, meaning our RoboFab. Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a great point. So we opened our RoboFab in 2024, and we are now building our next generation, or our next, I should say next generation, I should say our next version of Digit V4. This is being built now. We've started production on it, so that building is starting to go. It has the capacity to build up to 10,000 robots. We're not doing 10,000 yet. We're still in the smaller stages than that, but the idea is that we're very committed to the long term and to the scale of this ridiculous set of robots from Agility that are going to do work in manufacturing and warehouses.
Awesome. Awesome. And I think the positive or a positive that a potential client can take away from your response is obviously you're very open to a proof of concept, right? You know, someone may feel it's a good fit, right? And we've certainly collaborated on a couple potential opportunities where we thought and after looking at it, maybe it wasn't the right fit, right? So again, before they make that commitment or investment, right, which is very different from some of the technology out there, you guys certainly seem open to a proof of concept,
Yeah,
opportunity.
we want to partner with customers and work with our partners like Tompkins to be very transparent about what it is we're all trying to do. We want them to learn from the experience. We want to train Digit with real world, not just pure simulation. But I go into a warehouse. If Digit goes to pick up a tote, that weight is not evenly distributed, right? I could have 80% on one side, 20 on the
Right.
other. The robot has to figure that out. You can't do that in sim. Like that's a different animal. So yeah,
Right.
I think the goal is super partner friendly with our customers, very transparent, and let them learn while we learn. And that's why we do these POCs. But our goal, to be clear, is we want to work with companies that have this workflow, but have maybe 10 other of them that ultimately, if this works, they're going to buy 30, 40, 50, 60 of robots over time. That's really the goal. It's not just to do a POC for the sake of doing a POC, which is why we're picky about who we work
Right.
with.
Right. But again, it's a win-win, and you're getting
Correct.
real life data
That's right.
out of the
That's right. And the
experience as
customer's
well.
getting the real world experience of like change management. All of a sudden,
Hmm.
my staff comes in and wait, what's that? What
Yeah.
should doing over there? Right. Right. So it's a different world. And what's been great is the feedback we've got from associates in facilities that work around Digit has been super positive. So I think that bodes well. And I think a lot of that is to the design of Digit. It's very friendly looking.
Hmm.
It's not ominous where some of these other ones I look at and I'm like, it's a little scary.
Yeah. Going back to our Terminator
Yeah,
reference.
exactly. Exactly.
Well, obviously we're in the world of technology and we'd love to put automation everywhere within a warehouse, but at the end of the day it really is the financial aspect, right, of these automated solutions that really is going to be critical to the decision making process of a lot of our clients. So can you talk to where you see the justification for implementing, whether it's from a safety or repetitive motion concern, or even like we said, an availability of resources, and also maybe touch on Agility's pricing model available and kind of the targeted ROI you guys believe you can obtain for your clients.
Yeah, I think real simply, right? I think you mentioned the resources challenge that the industry faces, is a large driver as to why people are looking for technology like this. And the fact that it can become multi-purpose means it could do a lot of different things in the warehouse helps to the justification of the value proposition. But I would say our goal is to be well, let me step back a second. We offer two different financial models.
Okay.
We offer a CapEx model,
Mm-hmm.
and then we offer a robot as a service model. In either model, our goal is to be priced in a way that customers in a CapEx world should expect a 2-year or less ROI on a 2-shift operation, right? If you look at one shift for any automation, it generally doesn't fit so well from an
Yeah,
ROI
exactly.
perspective. But in a 2-shift or better, two-year ROI on a CapEx. On a RaaS model or robot as a service model, our objective is to be cost neutral or better, right? So that the customer is getting value day one in that kind of a model. Early days, like it's kind of a lost leader for us, but as we get to scale, that's going to become highly profitable for us as a company, but also highly valuable to our customers because I think of 3PLs, retail, anybody, if they're getting under 2 years, it's a no-brainer for them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. For sure. And again, there are a lot of tasks within a warehouse where all you're doing are moving boxes in totes.
That's right. That's right. Which is why we started there. It's a very fruitful market for a humanoid robot.
Now, you kind of touched on some of it when we're going over some of the safety aspects, but are there any other upgrades, works in progress, or improvements that are in the works for Digit?
Yeah, it's a great question. In fact, for anybody who's going to ProMat, come to our booth. You can go on ProMat's website and check out and find out which number the booth is, but we're going to have a massive presence. We're going to have I think it's an 80 by 50 booth.
Wow.
We're going to have 5 digits working at all times, doing all kinds of different manipulations. And you will see the newest version of V4. We call the current version V4 Alpha. This is the V4 newest version. You will see new safety improvements, different e-stops on the robot, different capabilities for it to start to move in the direction of cooperative safety, but not fully there yet. You will see autonomous charging, where the robot will walk over to a dock and plug itself in to the dock to charge itself. You'll see battery life improvement, something like 4-to-1 compared to what it was in the previous V4 instance. You'll see some things like, well, you won't see it, but we'll talk about, there are new what are called torque sensors in the wrist area, which will allow for better manipulation, better understanding of weights, things like that. So those are kind of the main things, but yeah, exciting. Like it's the same robot, but slightly different, and with some new functionality. So again, come to ProMat, reach out to Tony and the team at Tompkins Solutions,
Exactly.
schedule some time, and we will be happy to host you at the Agility booth and show you all the digits in action and talk to you more about how it might apply to your operations.
Here, here. I echo that. Yes, we'll make ourselves available to talk about anything and everything you may want to talk about Digit.
That's right.
Now, are there any other trade shows, just in case they, listeners can't attend ProMat? Are there any other events or shows where you may be demoing or having exhibits?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, in the spaces we're talking about, Automate is another one. It's coming up in May.
Mm-hmm.
That is in Detroit. So check that one out. We will be there as well. For those who are Manhattan customers, Manhattan WMS and WCS,
Okay.
etc., we will be at their Momentum event,
Neat.
which I believe
Neat.
is in May as well. I think that's in Las Vegas. I think that's exclusive to Manhattan customers.
Right.
But again, it's another way that you could potentially see Digit. And then I would always tell people, you don't have to wait for a trade show. Like if you're interested and you reach out to Tompkins and you're like, hey, we want to go see Digit live, because videos are cool. But as you have witnessed, right, you got to see this firsthand. You saw videos and you thought, wow, but what'd you think when you saw it in person?
Very impressive. Very impressive.
Big difference, though, right, to
Oh,
the
yeah.
video. So
for sure.
I would encourage people to reach out to you guys as well. And if it's off, you can't get to one of the shows, but you're super interested, you fit the profile, the type of customers we're looking for, work with Tony and the team, schedule a visit to come to RoboFab in Salem, Oregon. We'll host you for a day. You'll get to see digits. We can talk more about your business and what the challenges are and, where it could fit in and all of that. That's also on the table at any time.
Yep. And Salem's a cool town.
That is not bad. It's a good visit.
Yeah. Now, final question, and not digit related, but many of us are on the road quite a bit in our line of work, and sometimes the travel part of it can be just as taxing as the job itself. So I'm going to ask this question of everyone that shows up on our podcast, but is there any book, musician, podcast, series, anything that's captured your attention right now?
So I'm gonna hit on two fronts. So I'm an avid workout person. I generally work out about 7 days a week.
Wow.
And if you're old enough like me, you remember P90X, and there was a guy by the name of Tony Horton. So Tony Horton still is at it. It's no longer P90X. Wow. He's out on his own. I think it's called Power 4 Fitness or something like that. So I on the road, at home, I will go to the gym. I will pop up one of the videos, and I will do my 30 minutes to an hour and a half workout every day. And then
That's
generally
dedication.
on the music front, I will put my headphones on like I have on now, and I'll pop on Zach Bryan, which is like my new favorite, go-to music, and just that genre of music I just really enjoy. So those are two things that are pretty constant in my life, whether I'm on the road or whether I'm at home.
Awesome. Well, Pete, I thank you very much for your time. Appreciate you coming to visit with us and talk to us. And like I said, look up Pete or us at Modex or at ProMat, excuse me, if you happen to be attending.
Tony, thanks for having me. It was great conversation. Look forward to seeing you at ProMat, and look forward to seeing the rest of the team from Tompkins Solutions.
Likewise. Appreciate it.